Okay, to set up a meeting in Zoom, you can do it one of two ways. My preferred way is to do it through the browser, the Internet Explorer, rather than directly through Zoom, but I'll show you first how to do it within the Zoom application if you have it downloaded on your computer, and then I'll show you how to do it in the web application, which actually gives you a bit more flexibility on setting up reoccurrences and things like that. So my personal preference is to do it through the web browser rather than through Zoom, but I'll show you both. So first, bring up Zoom, your application, then go to meetings. This is where I prefer to do it. You've got the list of your meetings listed here. So you have a personal meeting you can just set up straight away, or you've got reoccurring meetings that have already been previously set up in your Zoom calendar. So to set up a brand new meeting, click on the schedule a meeting button. You'll then see a pop-up saying schedule a meeting from Outlook from Google. Just click on schedule meeting. At the top, in the topic, you can change this. So you can say this as weekly meeting, whatever you want to call it. It's the title of the topic of the meeting, which will be shown to the participants that join the meeting. You can choose your start time. So if you click on the down arrow, you can choose when it's starting. So for example, if I want this to start on Friday, the 9th, I can choose that. I can then choose the time that I want it to start. So it could be, for example, Friday at 3 o'clock. Again, the duration you can change to 1 or 2 hours. So it could be for 2 hours and 30 minutes. Then click reoccurring meeting, and this will become a repeated meeting that you can continue to use. When in the next section, you can either use your personal meeting or generate automatically. For security, I would suggest you generate an automatic meeting ID, which means that nobody else, only the people that you send this link to will have access to it. So it just means that you can't have other people joining your meeting accidentally. So I would do generate automatically. For security, you can also have a passcode. So again, only people who've got the link can access it. So you minimize people joining your meeting without you knowing. For client meetings, things like that, I would always put a waiting room in. So I'd only allow them to join once I admit them into the meeting. So that's just in case, for timings and things like that, you only want to admit them at the time and you don't want them to be there before you arrive. So if you just click the spot and it comes up with a waiting room. If you're creating this for supervision, then of course anybody can join at any time. So I would just make sure this is unticked. When you have a waiting room ticked on, you then get a pop-up on your screen that will ask you to admit people who have joined the waiting room for the meeting, and that will always be in your participants tab in Zoom. The authentication, I would just ignore that. It's only really used internally within corporate settings. Or people who've got Zoom access directly. So it's something you could use that, but I would just leave that unticked. So I would untick the waiting room for supervision. I would untick the only authenticated users. This section here allows automatically to, when you log into the meeting, it'll by default turn your video on, and the same for participants. So usually I leave this as off, so it gives you a chance to get yourself ready, and whenever you want to turn your camera, you can turn it on, or you can make it by default that it automatically turns your camera on when you join the meeting. So as a host, you can join the meeting, and if I make this on, then my video would always be on as the host, and the same for participants. The minute they join, their camera is automatically turned on. This is quite useful for people who are not really used to Zoom. So we've had several situations probably where people don't know how to turn their camera on. So if you have participants who are not very good at or not very technically au fait, then always turn this on, so it means that the camera will always be switched on the minute they join the meeting. So my preference is to turn it off, so it's up to you whether you want to have the video on or off when you join the meeting. The same with the audio. I would also just make it telephone and computer audio so that people can join either via telephone or via the speaker on their laptop or computer. The dial-in, you can change the dial-in, so change it to United Kingdom, because then it will give you the dial-in numbers associated with the United Kingdom. So that's if somebody can't join directly through the application, they can also join through your telephone number. The calendar doesn't really matter. This is just allows you to save it as an Outlook or Google Calendar invite. And then you've got some advanced options, so things like allowing participants to join any time. So even if the meeting is set at 3 o'clock, which we set it at. I would always tick this for a supervision to allow people to join at any time. I also quite like to mute participants upon entry, so that then again there's a bit of sort of confidentiality for people joining. I wouldn't record the meeting unless you're letting people know that. And also there is specific entries blocking if you need to do that, but I don't think we need to do that for this specific training. Alternative hosts, that's again, if you can't join the meeting, you can put the email address of somebody else who would be able to manage and run the meeting. But most of the time, people who are not hosts can just join the meeting directly, and it doesn't need a host. So once I've done that, I just click save. Then I will see that it will pop up in my Zoom. So I now have the weekly meeting title. I can copy this invitation, and then I can paste it into an email, or I can show the meeting invitation and then I can paste this into an email and send it to the relevant participants. I can also delete this meeting and I can edit this meeting, so I can change the meeting here. What I'm going to show you next is a second video of how to do this directly through the browser version, which I think is a much better way of doing it, because you get to choose the reoccurrence. You can then put the number of days and things like that, and there's a much easier way of managing it. So I'll show you that in the next one. Thank you.